Hey everybody, David Kemp here, host of Highway to Health. I lead the healthcare vertical at MarketScale and really appreciate you tuning in to prior episodes. I hope you have found them educational, informative, and maybe even inspirational. We talk a lot about the open road journey that we're on to improve healthcare, the patient experience, patient outcomes, and the overall health of our communities. And today, we're really excited. We'll discuss opportunities to improve the speed and accuracy of drug development. You know, there's obvious benefits to a faster, more personalized drug development and delivery process. But how and where are we seeing some of those improvements? Well, I'm excited to learn about that and more today with our guest. Dr. Jo Varshney is founder and CEO of Verisim Life, and we're honored to have her on today's episode. Dr. Varshney, welcome to Highway to Health.
Thanks, David, for having me here. It's a pleasure, and I'm really excited about this podcast since I've paid attention to a couple more in the past that you've had, and I'm really excited to share any part of the journey that enables patient outcomes and, more importantly, bringing drugs to the market faster.
You're pretty inspirational. I've followed your career a little bit over the last few months, and I've really enjoyed learning from you. And so thank you for being here. We'll get into work in just a little bit, and we'll get into healthcare. 2 out of the last 3 of my guests are really involved in mixed martial arts and Muay Thai specifically. And I thought that was a pretty unique. Both of you are CEOs. Mr. Eric Strafel with Molecular Testing Labs, who was on a previous episode, same interest. And so I think that's pretty interesting, pretty coincidental. There must be something there that helps you with your physical health and even your mental health. Tell us a little bit about Muay Thai, but also what else you enjoy doing outside of work.
Yeah, no, I wish I could say like I'm practicing at the moment since I'm in my 3rd trimester, expecting a baby boy soon.
Congratulations.
Thank you. One of the biggest impact mixed martial arts, more specifically Muay Thai, made in my life is, being humble, but being ready. I think both of those aspects as we grow and as an individual, it's a tough thing to do if you are constantly, in the weeds of thing and building something. And sometimes it's hard to come out of it and take a breath and look at all the things you've built, and also being able to ready for the unknowns, because life has, throws a lot of unpredictabilities. And in drug development, I'm sure, every one of us has experience with their own loved ones or family members, or even neighbors, that this life is unpredictable. And how do we feel the calmness and balance? And I think Muay Thai really helped me ground that belief, is like, you got to keep going no matter what, but also being able to enjoy that moment. Because when you're sparring, you don't know who you are going to be partnered up with, and how they punch, how you punch, hooks, whatnot. And just like, it is hard. You're never going to be perfect. And that's a really big learning. Like, it's okay to be not perfect. It's okay to not know what is going to happen, but it's great to be ready and embrace that change. And I think that really helps me wake up every morning knowing that, yes, the journey is long for us at Verisim Life, and each step of the way. And if I look back 5 years back when I started to now, so much have been built, so much has been validated. We are bringing drugs to the patient by getting FDA approval. It's all of that process is really rewarding and humbling at the same time, because who knows what's next, but we'll keep moving on.
That's really well said. You mentioned being in your 3rd trimester. You'll parenthood will humble you as well, but you have to be ready.
Right. Yes, they definitely test you in every direction and path. And you're like, how did someone so young, because I have an 18-month-old, can this tiny creature can really challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged. I don't know if you have kids or not, but that surprises me every day, and it's an incredible journey. I never thought about it till I had my own. So I'm really looking forward to the second one.
Yeah, we have four
Oh
actually,
wow.
and it's funny because we have a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and but we also have a 2-year-old.
Oh,
And I always thought things would get easier as they got older because they would understand more. They would become, more aligned with what we were trying to teach them, and
right.
they would develop good habits, and they have.
Mm,
But you encounter new challenges every day,
yeah.
regardless of what age they are, and
Mm.
it'll, yeah, it'll bring humility to your life for sure. But there's different ways that we can stay ready
Yeah.
to be a parent too.
It's
But
that's what martial arts help with. So see, I highly recommend for kids as well, because we you have programs for kids and such. So I can't wait when my children go to martial arts, and uh, hopefully they find the love that I did. So I'm looking forward to that.
well, there's definitely a tie there to discipline, self-discipline, and
Right.
self-motivation too. And
Yep.
I've never been big into mixed martial arts or martial arts of any kind, but the friends and colleagues that I'm connected to that have that background, there's a consistent theme with each of them, and they're very driven and disciplined. And so um, that's awesome. That's great to hear. I'm sure you'll get right back into it after uh, after this new one comes along, and I might have to look into it too. Maybe get my kids involved with it. But so tell us a little bit about um, your background in healthcare. I know at a high level you've been in it for a while, and your experiences early on in your career have led you to VSL. Tell us how your background has helped you develop this idea, turn that idea into a deliverable, and how that deliverable now is shaping and helping this drug development and delivery process.
Right. I think back to the time where working on a hard problem at Verism. Why did I do this? What got me this crazy gene that I really wanted to solve this. I think it really comes down to I'm really drawn by hard problems, and maybe this is why Muay Thai is something that fascinates me. Where we don't have a lot of solutions, and there are not a lot of folks who are working on it. And I think I've always been drawn by those folks who are working and building those, and those are hard paths, right? The paths that are not taken yet, and there are so many great companies that have come out, but not every company or every path has been successful. But it's always been since the beginning that I remember as a child. I always enjoyed hard or like challenging problems and how to solve it, and that really led me to become a veterinarian first, because dogs and cats, I'm sure they are pets, companion animals, but they're quite different when it comes to treatment. So are horses, goats, sheep. Who thinks about those things? Because they're like, oh, but if you go to a farm, like
Yeah.
there's a whole different feeding regimen, or even to zoo, you will see they have different types of treatment, feeding, I mean, everything. So that to me was like, it's miraculous, like how similar genetically humans, animals, we are all similar, but the physiological differences are massive. So that really was fascinating about that medicine. And then the other part was fascinating is the unknowns. Like what happens when a dog has severe kidney issues, but is also has some other things that cannot be diagnosed. So that really got me thinking like, oh, I need to really solve this. But with medicine, you have to really take care of the patient. You're not thinking about what we call in research and development, R&D, like, hey, let me tinker around, because we don't have that time. It's more reactive. So for me, it became very clear, like, and of course great mentors really helped me shape that thought process. Like, I really need to solve these kind of challenges. What we call now is translatability. Like, how do we look at animals, diseases, and also compare and contrast or find common treatments between humans? And that's really a big aspect in drug development, because you don't go directly to human. You actually test everything in animals. But unfortunately, everyone knows, including yourself, you don't have to be an expert in this field. Testing in rats and then saying like it will work in humans is a hard thing to really feel okay about. And it's been happening for several years. So that question became a big driving factor for Verisum Life. So I did my master's and my PhD in genomics, what we call it comparative oncology, developing drugs against very difficult to treat diseases such as bone cancer, which is common in large breed of dogs. It's less common but aggressive in pediatric, and colitis patients and whatnot. So all of that made me realize one thing: it is not an easy or what we call linear path. You can't just say, okay, what works in mouse or rat? And there's a running joke in science, like you can cure anything in mice. And unfortunately, we have cured a lot of things in mice, but I mean, we know the reality is very different. So what are we missing? And I think that's what Verisum Life is trying to solve. And the way we are solving it has to address a couple things. One, it has to be a shorter time, right? If it takes years to come to a
Mhm.
solution, it's not going to really make a major impact in drug development. It has to be cost effective, right? If we have to spend millions, then it's like, okay, well, we have to add more money into that drug development than less. And lastly, it has to really show insights, what we call actionable insights. So that's really the power of a software and or what we call the computational platform. And we name it as BioISIM. And the name really comes from being as close to the biological reality as possible. So I is the intelligence part and sim is the simulations. So we really try to create these virtual imprints of what biological behaviors you see between different animals, including humans. So now, and we have so much retrospective data. So now what we can ask a software, a computational tool is, tell me, based on all your learning, what's the best way to predict this next phase within the drug development, and in which animal or in which experiment. So that reduces the time, the cost, and ultimately the risk, and enables the decision makers to really empower them to make a better decision with every information they have. Because many times we are pressured during drug development phase to make a decision with limited knowledge, because they're not connected with each other. Each aspect in drug development is its own big bubble with millions of investments, and to connect those parts is hard, because you can use a hardware tool. It needs to be something quick and easy, and softwares are really great for it. And that's
Yeah.
really what we want to do, is de-risk the R&D decisions at early stage when there's not enough data to predict ultimately the clinical outcomes and enable the empowerment of like decision making in that process.
Why did we ever start testing on
Oh,
animals?
there's a fantastic podcast actually, and I'm blanking on the. It was actually a big mission of a venture capital. Like, it became a big business model, where they really made a lot of money bringing animals into the picture of drug development. We're talking about ages ago. I'll try to find that out. It was a phenomenal podcast about the whole history of animal testing. The why is an important thing, but also it's like, why are we still doing it this way is a bigger challenge in our lifespan, when rockets are flying cheaply and we can reuse the same rocket. We have self-driving cars, and when it comes to drug development, we are still, yes, there are a lot of advancement, don't get me wrong, but we still ultimately, when it comes to this, we come back to the same thing that we were doing 50 years ago. And that to me feels like we got to do something here. We got to
Right.
enable the regulators that, hey, there is a better way to do it. sure, you can test it in animals, but you don't have to test it in every animal. You can test in the right animal. That's what a
Right.
system can help you do. But also you have more understanding. Okay, simple things like what's the right dose to test? You have to waste so much animals. Oh, I can't tell you how much time I've spent sacrificing. We call it sacking the mice animals because you need them for
Mm,
R&D. But if you had a tool that could help you determine, okay, how to set up a right experiment, I bet no one really wants to do those experiments and keep sacking the animals and doing it. And as the animal size grows, it's much more challenging because, for example, monkey trials, you have to really be thoughtful. Otherwise, it's a whole wasted effort. And it's a big challenge. But we are hopeful, and we are already showing those proof points that us showing that hey, a technology can enable better animal experimentation, better prediction, will what we call in the industry's 3 Rs, will enable reduction, refinement, and also replacement of certain animal experiments. And today is a great time because FDA also is calling for such solutions. So we are at the right time and right place to make this, big gold standard for the industry.
in my naive mind, at first, I thought, well, we probably started with animals like mice because we wanted to be safe when we
Yep.
started delivering the drugs to humans, and that was definitely a part of it. I'm not saying
Right.
it wasn't, but you mentioned a business structure, and that's probably at the core of almost every idea.
Yeah,
There was money
absolutely.
behind it,
Yeah.
and a way to make money out of it. But as we're on this topic here, you mentioned the physiological differences between the different animals that you're testing on, and then the obvious differences physiologically, biologically, when extrapolating that and applying it to humans.
Right.
With VSL and Biosim, are you able to take the data from a smaller set of animals that you're
Mhm.
testing on and then magnify or extrapolate results from a smaller test group, and then apply those results more directly to the human species?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
not only that, what now we are capable of doing is you can start when even you don't have animal data. You may just know your
Oh, really?
compounds and structure at the very early stage, right? Where you don't have a lot of information. And that's the beauty about machine learning and AI. It's
Right.
the computation and learning and identifying patterns like, oh, we have all these drugs in our database or drug like compounds. Are there features that we can match with features for new compounds or new drugs? And the answer is yes. And then show like, hey, this would be a good path for our client to take or ourselves to take. And in addition to that, we recently acquired a drug discovery company. So what we are enabling with this knowledge is, can we go back and see if we can find a better variation of a drug or compound that could have a better human outcome? Because ultimately everyone cares as the human outcome, right? Because we want that to work in humans in the shortest period of time. So now those are the big capabilities a system can do, and we are constantly showing that with existing what we call mechanism of actions. Like, okay, if it's a cancer pathway, can we find a better compound knowing the existing drugs data? And the answer is yes. And it's much more easier to do finding those patterns today with all the training and learning our system has done than we started. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. And my brain's kind of going everywhere here because I see the benefits of speed. I see the benefits of fewer test subjects. I see the benefits of lower cost. But then I think the biggest win here, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be personalization
Mhm.
of care, of drug
Right.
delivery.
Yeah.
You touched on the differences between different animals and the
Right.
differences between animals and people, but
Right.
people are different in and of themselves. Um,
Absolutely.
Men, women, ages, even ethnicities have
Absolutely.
biological differences that
Yep.
will probably change the way a drug impacts that person.
Right.
Um, and I would imagine VSL and the computational platform that you have could even help close the gaps there
Right.
and deliver more personalized care and delivery to different types of people.
Absolutely. And in fact, we just sent out a publication from our deep learning methods of how we call the patient responding versus not responding, specifically for COVID. And the reality is we are suffering because of that, right? Because when it comes to patient enrollment, if you know, in animal studies, they're all bred, maintained within a very controlled environment. So it's easier to get results with less variability. Unfortunately, when it comes to human, there's so many complications. You don't know what other comorbidities they have, like are there other diseases they are suffering from. I mean, a lot of things complicate that patient trial process. So if there is a way that, you know, our system can help identify, like, okay, these group of patients will be responding well. Let's say group of patients have gene X versus one group of patients within the same disease have gene Y, and we see a clear demarcation or even some trend, even if it's not clear, that's a good thing for the the drug developer to know, okay, well, let's make sure we stratify these patients, because, you know, we want it to work on gene X even if it's not working on gene Y, and maybe we look at different ways to find the treatment. But anything that helps a group of patients and shows what we call statistical significance, right? Like it is actually working in majority of the patients. That's a big win, because we all care about getting the drugs to the market sooner, cheaper,
Right.
faster. So that's really our goal. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure it sounds complicated, and indeed it is quite complicated, because we are trying to build something from scratch that's not been built before. So we have lots of different ways to build that and the architecture. But one thing is great about a system is it's the architecture, or the foundation has been built in a manner to make it flexible. So the inputs and outputs can be changed and modified based on the right disease or indication that we're working on.
There's no doubt it would be, I mean, it's absolutely complicated to me, but as it relates to the trends, topics that are in the industry right now, it hits the mark on almost all of them. You know, you mentioned COVID a minute ago. The COVID vaccines that came out a couple of years ago, the speed to market on those were pretty incredible.
Absolutely.
And it was out of necessity, probably.
Yep.
So speed is always going to be one of those topics, those things that you're trying to deliver on.
Right.
But one other thing is that's been just really in the news lately is the cost to the consumer for these prescription drugs.
Yeah.
You know, Mark Cuban is doing some amazing work with his direct to consumer pharmacy, where he's lowering the cost of a lot of drugs in a lot of ways by, you know, cutting out a lot of unnecessary middlemen,
Right.
in his opinion,
Yep.
and making drugs more accessible, more affordable to the public. I would imagine in a lot of ways, Verisim could help control the cost of development, which then would trickle down to a lower cost for the consumer. Because if you're speeding it up, if you're using data instead of people, if you're using data instead of additional test subjects or test groups,
Right.
there's a lot of cost containment advantages
Right.
here too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That, and then imagine the drugs that are already out there. If they could be repurposed, they could be tweaked a little, they could be changed in the formulation. That's a huge opening for a new market of indication that hasn't been tested before. And this is something, the goal of our pharmaceutical subsidiary, the Pulmosim Therapeutics, that where we are looking into drug assets, or we are developing or repurposing compounds that exist, but not for the indication that they are being tested, but some other indication. And can we change the formulation and, you know, help it deliver faster? So, you know, there's a lot of known information about a drug when it's already in the market. And then we can leverage that and use that as well. So you don't have to go in and innovate every time and create a new drug, because that increases the cost as well. And then of course, as we expand further and in near future, we can look at drug combinations, because I'm sure you know, and everyone knows, like, one drug, one target usually doesn't happen. So, but drug combinations are very hard, and the trials are hard. And we want to reduce that burden for the drug developer to make sure they have enough insights into the right combination, dosing, off-target effects, the toxicity that are associated. So all of that could be big milestones for the industry, but also for us, as we show how we can scale up these processes without really being a drug company.
Right. But a service to those drug companies.
Yep.
I'm amazed, and my brain is spinning here, because there's a lot of benefits to our population. We've talked about that. Do you have any insight into the type of to other populations, the type of harm or impact it has to animals, in terms of what the impact, because that's a topic too now, right? What are we looking at in terms of the impact to different animal species when they're going through these testing processes that are currently being used primarily?
Yeah. So being a scientist at heart, it is hard for me to, say like, hey, don't harm animals, because unfortunately animals are really it's like the bread and butter of a scientist to really make the conclusions. I think the biggest thing that I've learned in my career, that is no one, at least I know in the scientific realm, wants to harm animals. It's
Right.
really, they want to get to the answers quickly without having to spend a lot of time in the lab doing just like lab experiments. We call the in vitro experiments. But ideally, I think the big thing is, what are we going to do differently, right? This was the whole point of my career. Like, where is the better way to do? Is there like a way to solve this challenge? And I think that's what BioISM's goal is. Like, hey, let's not have too many animals. If you have a computational platform that can provide the statistical significance, and then you just have to test it on fewer number of animals, everyone would want to do that. It's just now the matter of like spreading that knowledge and message, and doing that effort from our end to kind of make sure that folks understand the relevance of this. And the other part is, we still are trying to figure out, like, for example, neurological diseases in humans. It is a hard problem. We don't know so much about our brain, right?
Right.
And pain, and how do you mimic that in an animal is a big question. And people and researchers are trying very hard, like, hey, what do we do in the most humane way to kind of navigate the path with the animals? But it's unfortunate, it's not 100% sure. If we could create that translational bridge, then we wouldn't our company won't exist. But it's that gap, like, okay, how do we understand human mind, and what kind of experiments we need to do? It's a big question, and it's an ethical question as well. But I wish I had a great answer to it, but ultimately it's like, we're all trying. We want to do something that helps get us to understand complex diseases faster, but we don't know much about them. So hopefully we as BioISM becomes the bridge between this gap, and then we are able to kind of navigate, okay, what is a humane experimentation? And there's so many now protocols that also prevent researchers to do anything inhumane in general with animals. But ultimately it's about reflecting what could be happening in the humans, and it is a challenge.
You mentioned earlier that we've been doing some of the same things for the last 50 years or so, and
Right.
Oftentimes the answer to why are we doing it this way is, well, we've always done it this way.
Right.
Sounds like there's some good momentum and some evolution to these processes available, starting to become available now. If you could look into the future, 10 years from now, with the progress that you've seen in the industry, ideally, where would we be 10 years from now? Realistic, and then comparatively, realistically, where do you think we'll be?
10 years in a drug development, it's like not a long time,
It's
because
not
I'm
that
sure
very,
you've
yeah,
heard
it's not that
about
long.
10-year you get one drug out. But with the evolution and the rise in technology, and FDA really looking for what we call alternative solutions to animal testing, I absolutely see computational technology is here to stay, and it's going to be making huge changes, not just our bioisim, but from, we call it CAR-T, cell gene therapy, all these different technologies, organ on a chip. They're all going to be really playing huge roles to kind of not only reduce the impact on the animal burden that we all face, but help kind of navigate the path on what we call standardized data collection, because we don't get standardized data collection. It's more like you collect the data. It's a very human based process, but ultimately now I'm seeing that they're making it more and more automated. We have made pretty much everything automated so that our humans or our team can be focused on thinking beyond what exists, right? And that's what humans, in my opinion, it should be enabling. They shouldn't be doing things that a computer can do and beyond. They should be doing things what computers cannot do. And I think in 10 years, we are looking at novel therapeutics, more repurposed compounds, more drug combinations, because we as humans have been enabled by these core technological innovations that did not exist previously. And I see that magic happening in the company all the time, like coming up with solutions that were not existing, and I'm blown away, like, wow, this quickly we could get to this stage that if I was doing research it'll take me years, is an incredible, exciting time to be alive. So I'm really optimistic and hopeful that we are going to be on that path, and not the other way, just doing the same thing because we've been doing it for several ages.
It's got to be rewarding work.
Indeed, it is. And working with a team that, you know, finds those kind of ideas and solutions and are willing to take the challenge, or, inch themselves beyond what exists, is also very rewarding. Because, I want to work in a team like that. That was my dream. Like, hey, I want to solve something that other people are excited, and, it's not been solved. And doing it faster, cheaper is like amazing. It's very rewarding. Like, oh wow, we don't have to go in and invest millions of dollars to get to that solution, is indeed a magical feeling.
Well, it sounds like a flexible solution too, one that
Right,
can solve different challenges and different gaps for
right,
different use cases.
right.
How important, when you're building these partnerships and these relationships,
Mhm.
um, in this industry, how important is it for your solution at Verisim Life to be flexible and to address different concerns or challenges that different companies and different partners are facing?
Absolutely important. I think this is one of the other learnings I had from my career is we dump everything in the translational gap aspect, but translational gap is tough. We're talking about millions of problems in that, or millions of challenges, questions, like, because no one drug is similar, no disease one similar, or they are similar but there might be a different thing that they are looking into. So one of the aspects, when I started the building this technology, now of course it's above and beyond me, was like, hey, we need to make sure that our system is flexible enough that we can customize a solution specific to the translational challenge. Because without that, we won't be able to get to the right, you know, data point for the drug decision making that we need, that the customer or the partner needs. And that has been a core, I want to say, technological culture for us, is like, hey, we got to stay flexible, nimble, and
Yeah.
agile. Like, we need to make sure the system really is able to learn from different learnings, because, everything is connected, but it's still pretty unique and different. And everyone is working on a different challenge within this industry. I think that's while we are scaling up. So that's been a real beautiful art in a way, where we've built a system that's flexible but also can scale
Yeah.
without having to build everything from scratch every time we have to work with a client.
It's kind of ties back to what you mentioned earlier about remaining humble, but staying ready, because who knows what we'll experience, what we have to overcome in the next few years. I don't think anybody expected COVID, right?
Yeah.
But we had to be ready. And so the flexibility aspect of what you're building into Verisum Life is, I think it speaks to that humility that we don't know what we don't know yet. And you have to stay agile so that you're prepared.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good point that you brought up, because in some of these marketing team company meeting, when we are trying to address it from the concept that we are building here, is I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know the whole series and all. I'm not sure if you watched it or not, but we are not Frodo, where we know everything about the ring and the drug. We know that the Frodo has to go and get the ring to the volcano. Let's just keep it simple. And but the big role that Sam played is a really important one, because without Sam, it's a difficult journey, right? And I know I don't want to get philosophical about that whole movie or the series, but the goal for us is we want to be Sam. We don't want to take credit for, hey, we are like developing drug, but we want to enable the drug developers to feel, hey, we want to help you each way, because it's a hard journey and it doesn't get easier. People get excited at the early stage when you find a new molecule that could target. I've gotten excited, but the humbleness comes from like, oh my God, there are like several stages beyond that to even think about testing it in humans. Was really made me think like, let's try to be the Sam, because it's a tough journey and it doesn't get easier as you go further and further into that.
Well, I'll tell you, in every hero's journey, in real life or the movies, in every hero's journey, there's a guide like Sam, and there's a tool, there's a tool that they have to use, or else they'd be powerless, or at least they would think they were powerless. The hero would. So you guys being the guide and the tool necessary for the hero in your story is incredible. And I think that's such a humble vision and mission that it's inspiring. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Before we leave, if there was one thing that you would want the listeners to take from our conversation today, maybe it's something we've already talked about, maybe it's something new, but if there was one thing that our listeners took away from today, Dr. Varshney, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one thing, since we are now at the stage of actually talking about our technology, so I'll tell the listeners this, that we have a technology that enables decision-making process faster and more efficient. And if you're looking for a partner to help your drug development process to become more efficient, please reach out to us. Check out our website, papers, white papers, blogs. We are now really reaching out and talking about it. And if you even have questions of how we do things, we are always ready to answer that, because this is a really important mission, not just for me, but for my entire team. So we're always willing to learn and educate at the same time, and hopefully find crucial partnerships and bring the drugs to the market faster. So thank you so much for having me here, David. It's a pleasure, and it was a great discussion overall. And I thank all the listeners as well.
Well, thank you for being here. Congratulations on the new edition that's coming soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And you're Superwoman for doing this while building a life. I mean, it's pretty incredible what you're doing and what VSL is doing as well. So
I think it's all the team that helps me. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic rest of the day. Appreciate it.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.